Hey, AfterBuzzers, what a difference a little change of scenery makes in a trip to Minneapolis. We are expecting an elite pitchers duel today, but it turned into an offensive explosion. All that and more on this week's Red Sox Wrap 360.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
X gon' give it to you. He gon' give it to you. X gon' give it to you. He gon' give it to you.
Oh, yeah, I like that. Well, unfortunately, we have not confirmed where DMX is, but we do know that Xander Bogaerts has been red hot and keeping the line moving for the Red Sox, as evidenced today in the huge 17-6 victory over the Twins. Before we get into that, I just wanted to introduce my co-host for the Red Sox Wrap 360. Bringing them in live on Skype, we got the man, Mike Conley.
What's up, AfterBuzzers?
What's up, Mike? And also on the couch, we've got the one, the only, Laura Mag.
Hello.
Oh, yeah, Laura.
And you guys all know me, I'm Ben Fay, and you can hit me up on Twitter at Benny Frickin' Jam. Guys and girls, where can the fans get you if they want to ask some questions about today's show? Mike?
You want to go to the YouTube channel and click on our link and just throw that right in the chat room and try to ask us some questions, steer the conversation in a different direction. I'm still not on social media, as you know, Ben.
Yes, but we are waiting for the fans to put the pressure on Mike so we can get him onto the Twitter sphere. And Laura, where can the fans get you if they want to ask you some questions?
I'm going to be the one who's on the YouTube, so I can get all the questions, but you can get me at Instagram at LMag.
Perfect. All right, well, let's get right into it because there is tons to talk about this week, and we'll start it with the offensive explosion that we were talking about before, 17-6 at the Twins today. Mike, what did you think about the bats finally waking up today?
I was loving it. And, you know, they woke up all weekend, and apparently Minnesota was where we had to be to make it happen. I mean, Xander Bogaerts, 2 doubles in 1 inning. What are you kidding me? And he's got, an 11-game hitting streak going. And he just really loves the Twins. He's hitting something like 600 in his last 10 games versus the Twins. Pretty crazy. But even yesterday, what do they have, 11 runs yesterday? That was their season high until they eclipsed it 1 day later. It's good to see these bats coming alive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we had we were expecting an elite pitchers duel today. We had Chris Sale going, who, of course, you all know has just been absolutely on fire this year, versus Irvin Santana, probably the only pitcher in the major leagues that we can or that we can justify as maybe having a better season than Sale at this point. Very rare that you see 2 top of the line guys like this going against each other, and well, really both of them weren't themselves today. Sale did get the 10 strikeouts, but yeah, he let up 4 runs, which, I mean, I guess it's for 4 runs for Sale is kind of is kind of struggling a little bit. It's crazy to say, but I guess he did enough because Santana let up I think it was 4 home runs today, so he had a really rough day.
Yeah, and that was amazing, too, because he had only given up, I think, 2 all season. And so for the Sox to get 4 off him today, pretty incredible. Not to mention, I believe he was leading the AL, if not the entire MLB, in ERA coming into today's game. So pretty incredible they can touch up this guy. And Irvin Santana is really kind of an odd story because it seemed like his last couple of years in the Angels, his velocity was down, and it looked like this guy was kind of garbage. And, like, Minnesota kind of grabbed him off the strap heap. Oh, I think Kansas City maybe grabbed him first. But now he's turned it around in Minnesota and looks like his old self.
Yeah, absolutely. He looks great. And so yeah, he actually was a sub-1 ERA starting the day today. But with all those runs, I think it was 6 earned runs today, his ERA is back up to a 1.72. So that takes him down off the number 1 spot in the major leagues. But you're absolutely right. He's no slouch. But 5 home runs today for the Red Sox, 2 for Sandy, which we love to see. Finally, Sandy's getting hot. And then we also had home runs by Pedroia, Benny, and Betts. So we're starting to really hit our stride on the offense the past couple of days. I mean, man, 28 runs in 2 days, that's crazy, especially when we're talking about averaging something around 3 or 4 runs for the season so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think over the last 15 games, I think our highest run output was like 6, and that's not exactly what we were expecting from this team this year. We were expecting an offensive juggernaut, and luckily the last couple of days we've seen that. It's great to see Xander get going. He's a guy that had a monster first half last year and then kind of petered out a little bit in the second half. So I'm hoping with a slow April, maybe he can just rip off, a nice 5-month stretch here and hopefully 6 if we're playing in October. And, kind of get that consistency, we want to see from him to put him in with the elite shortstops in the game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So another thing that really stuck out to me today is getting Kimbrel in there in the 8th. We got him in there. It was a little bit of a jam, but he got out of the jam and finished out the game, got the save. He's now 10 for 11 on saves for the season, I believe, which puts him second in the major leagues. Mike, I know this was a guy you were a little worried about heading into this seaon. What are your thoughts now?
Well, did he get the save today? Because he didn't pitch the 9th, so do you have to close the game? Today.
But he did come in the 8th. So yeah, you're right. He didn't get the save today, but still 10 of 11, second in the MLB. The dude's looked electric when we put him out there. Yes,
I gotta kind of eat my foot on that one. He's making me a believer slowly but surely. That was great. It was, and I think like maybe the save category has to change a little bit because he did kind of save the game in the 8th by putting out that fire. And then, Joe Kelly comes in and does mop up duty because they exploded for all those runs. Mm-hmm. But it's like, so I think, Farrell's intention was to, have him come in and do a 5-out save. But obviously, once they scored all those runs, it was smart to pull him. And, he was sitting on the bench for a while in that half an inning. But, otherwise, it was kind of looking like maybe if they didn't score all those runs, he would have the 5-out save. But I like the idea of even in a situation like that where kind of like the Indians used Andrew Miller in the playoffs last year, where bring your closer in, even if it's the 8th, when it's that high leverage situation, tough part of the order, and get those outs, because your team could maybe extend that lead and you can come in with like a setup type guy to finish it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, great decision there by John Farrell to get Kimbrel in the game at a crucial point. Proved to be a good decision. So that was today's game. We had a monster of a game yesterday as well. We took it 11-1. We had Porcello in the mound, and man, he was looking great yesterday. 7 innings, 7 hits, 1 earned run, 6 Ks, just 1 home run. What are your thoughts on Porcello? Has he started to get back into last season's form or what?
Yes, I think so too. And like even when they got a big lead for him, he was like pitching like it was a 2-1 game, So he had that intensity, making good pitches. I think Remdog actually made a comment in that to that point during the game. But do we have to put this on pause for a sec, Ben, and talk about the continuing circus going on with the Baltimore Orioles this season?
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad that you can get into this. This has been something I have been wanting to talk about all week. So let's get right into it. What a circus it has been. I mean, we have played them in so many games. I guess it's almost inevitable that the tension and the competitiveness was going to boil over. But let me just first try to separate out what exactly is going on here, because there's really 2 situations as I see it. There's the Manny Machado situation, and there's the Adam Jones situation. Okay, and yes, maybe we're not living in a vacuum where these 2 things are not exactly connected, but I see them as 2 distinct issues. So let's first, which one do you want to talk about first, Mike?
I mean, both of them got me a little bit downtrodden because I think the Red Sox are kind of at fault for both of these things, and like the Orioles are the ones that look like the righteous team here, which makes me sad because, I hate the Orioles. But, with the whole Machado thing, it was like, again, I didn't think it was that dirty a slide. It was no big deal. So for us to retaliate and have this thing happen is just kind of ridiculous on our end. And then the whole thing with, the guys shouting the epithets to Adam Jones earlier this week in the outfield, it's like, please don't, one bad apple can spoil the bunch, all right? So don't group in all us Red Sox fans, with some, donkey who's just shouting shit from the bleachers, So, and I think you saw that the next night with the standing O for Adam Jones, how classy as an audience we are and crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely agree with you on the Jones situation. It's terrible to see that kind of thing, and that's not something that I know that the Boston fans are all about. So, we did get word that there was a Red Sox fan who was shouting some pretty inappropriate racist remarks at Jones, and actually I heard that there was a fan, I don't know if it was that particular fan that was making those remarks, but there was a fan who got banned from Fenway Park following that game for saying some kind of racist remarks to another fan. So props to the Fenway Park management for taking those kinds of steps because, as we knew, there's really no room in the game for that type of thing. Having Jones get ejected on Wednesday, I think, was probably a little bit of frustration on that, but warranted that he was frustrated because the umpires were calling, that game terrible. That pitch that he freaked out about was a ball, and the umpire waited a solid second and a half before he called the strike, which is like two things that he did wrong in the same play. So, of course, Jones is going to be pissed about that, and rightfully so. Now, all that being said, I totally disagree with you on the Machado aspect. I think Machado is such a whiner. Okay, now, here's what I think. I think you're right. He did slide into Pedroia, and it wasn't a malicious slide, but he did hurt him. And you know what? It was a sloppy slide. So whether or not he meant to do it or not, Pedroia spent 2 games out of the lineup, and he's one of our best players and probably our team captain at this point. So you have to expect that you're possibly going to get beaned the next day. Whether or not you meant to do it, you did it, and it happened. Okay? So, not to mention that Machado is not exactly Mr. Clean Slate of behavior himself. He's got a history of freaking out over little things, right? I mean, he had that incident, what was it, last year or the year before, where he chucked his bat at the third baseman who he took offense to the tag. So he's not exactly he's kind of like the boy who cried wolf, if you ask me. All right. Then, we throw a little bit above Machado's head, which is, of course, not great. I mean, again, I'm not trying to defend the Red Sox here for making these types of bad plays, right? I mean, that was definitely not the right way to go about it by Barnes. And he deserved getting suspended for 4 games and getting a fine, in my opinion. But again, then you have the Orioles throwing at Benintendi, and they didn't mention anything about that. They hit Mookie. They didn't mention anything about that. And, yeah, what you saw on Thursday's game, or was it Thursday? Sorry, on Wednesday's game, when Gosman threw the curveball and hit Xander, it was kind of ridiculous, in my opinion, that Baltimore was freaking out about that because, look, that the MLB was talking to both those teams, and they said there is going to be 0 tolerance for this game. If anybody gets hit, they're getting tossed or they're getting run right away. So whether it was a curveball or not, he hit him right square in the middle of the bat, and, that's how they were going to call it. So,
but it's a curveball, Ben.
It's a curveball. It's still going to hurt. Not like he didn't get a bruise from it.
Oh, I tell you, this game used to have a lot of tough guys in it, and now I just don't know why. I mean, that slide at second base, that's nothing. And now, this getting hit by a curveball and warning benches, we're just very soft, very soft. It's sickening. And I hear you, Adam Jones. That was not a strike, so that was good that he argued that call. I mean, but Jerry kind of said it best yesterday, where it's gotten to the point where you don't know which team owes the other team yet. You've kind of lost track of what happened, and you just wish they could just stop it and get back to playing baseball. It's one thing, it's just the season's too long to have this go on for the whole season. I like it around the playoffs. It adds a little more fire to it, but this just seems like it's a mountain out of a molehill situation. It seems like this huge war is happening over some small little things that used to happen in the game all the time, as recently as 5 to 8 years ago. Ever since they made that Chase Utley rule at second base, it's like killing the game. It's making the game more soft, and it's just sad. And Jerry alludes to that a lot. I couldn't agree with him more.
And one subplot that came out of that whole situation was, I think, Chris Sale really stepping up from a leadership standpoint. And not saying that him throwing at Machado or behind Machado was the right move, but I really like how the Red Sox have handled this situation from a standpoint of not going to the media like Machado and whining like a little baby, but really handling it like a bunch of men, and Sale kind of getting all the players hyped up in the dugout. And when the reporters asked him afterwards what he said, "Oh yeah, I was just reminding all my teammates of the pool party that I'm having this weekend. I'm just making sure that everybody's excited and got the invite right." Like, that's the way that you're supposed to play that situation out, not vent everything that you're saying to the media. Or even when they asked him, what his thoughts were of Machado's rant, in which he essentially said, I'm not losing any sleep over it. So I think that's the way that you need to handle it. And I'm just really impressed by Sale on and off the field right now. I think he's taken a huge leadership role for this team, and I'm digging it big time.
Yes, the guys, intensity is kind of unmatched in this game. We've talked before about how he kind of reminds us of former Red Sox pitcher Pedro Martinez, and he keeps, making you think of Pedro when he does such things as 6 straight games with double-digit Ks. That's very a Pedro-like thing to do. In fact, I know Pedro went 5 straight. Did he ever get 6? Maybe that's a question the fans can sign in on.
Yeah.
But unless you know the answer, Ben.
I do not. Yeah, we'll have to throw that one out to the fans and see if we can get an answer by the end of the show.
There you go. And I think maybe you think he showed a little bit today that he was kind of mortal on Sunday's game, but you look back at it and, when they scored those 3 runs in the 4th, or tied it up with 4 runs, it was kind of like a bunt that Marrero couldn't handle and a couple bloops, and, they weren't really even hitting him hard. So, and then I think he just kind of came unwound a little bit because the ump was squeezing him a little bit on a few calls. Mm-hmm. But I think he kind of settled down in the next inning and came back and threw 2 good innings before he had to get out of there due to pitch count.
Yep, absolutely. So I think we actually might have a fan on the YouTube chat. Laura, do we have a question? Or?
Yeah, we got Ben, one of our regulars actually,
yes.
Is asking, or actually wants to know your opinion. He said, Barnes is supposed to be our step-up man, but I've never trusted him. Should we give someone else a try?
Well, I think going into this season, I probably would have said yes, but honestly, he's played really well up until this point in the season. I think that's probably been one of our biggest strengths that I really didn't expect is just our bullpen. Barnes and Robbie Scott and Heath Hembry and of course Kimbrel. I think that eventually when Carson Smith is healthy and we get some of those other guys back into the relief, he might get some situations where he might not actually have that role presented to him every time. But I don't know, Mike, what about you? What do you think?
Well, I kind of like what we've seen out of the bullpen. Ben, that I was very nervous about that unit coming into the season, so I've been impressed to this point. As far as Bonds being the setup man, I mean, he had a stretch where he was, but he was doing well in that role. But I still see it as a kind of a fluid situation I mean, Bonds can be in that role, Kelly can be in that role, like you say, Carson Smith when he comes in be in that role. A guy who probably won't is a guy we acquired in a trade for, among others, the mayor of Ding Dong City, Tyler Thornburg,
Yep.
who got transferred earlier this week to the 60-day DL. So that doesn't look too good.
Yep.
But as far as Barnes, he's not a lost cause yet, but he hasn't nailed down the eighth like it's automatic. He's not the Mariano Rivera, John Wetland tandem just yet. And forgive me, I just used the Yankees illusion. Oh, boy.
Uh-oh. Yeah, so, great question, Ben.
Tisk.
Great question, Ben. I appreciate you tuning in. And for all you others that are out there, appreciate you guys tuning in as well. We did have some other interesting happenings that happened during this week. I don't know if you caught this one, Mike, but we had a failed scoreboard proposal, at Fenway. That just goes to show you, folks, do not try to propose while you're at the game on live TV. It can be a disaster. Did you catch that one, Mike?
I missed that entirely. So the girl said no?
The girl said no, and they actually had to pan away, and it was not a pretty sight. So I don't know if that's like something that they do at Fenway often, but I don't know. They might take a break from that for a little bit.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So.
Wow. You really gotta, once you pull that question out, you gotta really make sure you know the answer.
Yeah, if you're gonna put yourself on the scoreboard at Fenway, you better know what that answer is gonna be.
Maybe he was a little iffy on it, and he figured, hey, if I put the pressure on her, by putting this in front of 37,000, whoever's watching on TV,
How could she say no,
that
right?
backfired.
Well, I warned Ben never to do that, so I'd probably say no if he did it there. So.
Nice. So we also had a couple injuries this week. I think we might have talked about it a little bit before. We had Marco Hernandez go down with the left shoulder strain, the left shoulder strain. He had 5 errors for us on that last error where he actually hurt his shoulder. That is a lot. There's a lot of question marks at third base for us right now. We had Devin Marrero come in for us today, and he didn't get any hits. What do you think, Mike? I mean, where are we going to go with third base this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty sad position. You bring in Devin Marrero because you're having some trouble over there defensively. He's supposed to be a defensive stalwart who doesn't have much of a bat. And, he goes and boots that bunt today. He made a nice charge on the ball, and then it bounced out of his glove. So, I mean, that guy is obviously not in there for his bat. So if he can't field, then it's time to keep the trainer rolling and see who else we can got to give him a shot. But, I mean, the aforementioned mayor of Ding Dong City, you really miss him now.
Yep. So just some other guys that I see some potential is really helping us with the third base situation. Of course, my man, Mr. Brock Starr, he did get his rehab 3 games in starting on the 28th, and then they actually shut him back down because he was having that reoccurring vertigo. He did just get another start back on Saturday. He went 1 for 3 as the DH, and the early indication is no reoccurring vertigo. So I think that's a good thing for Brock. We talked about that a little bit on the show last week when Dennis was on here. And actually I did a little bit more investigation, and they're still not sure if it's linked to some of his previous concussions. So we're just, we're hoping for the best for Brock, and hopefully he takes his time and doesn't rush that back. But at the same time, we're definitely looking for him and looking forward to him coming back.
No question. Get well soon, Brock Starr. Another guy that might be in that third base mix, and a guy, I've kind of dogged on this program before due to his lack of defense, Josh Rutledge.
Mm-hmm.
But He was played a little first base the other night. I caught him at the end of that Friday night game, I think, and he made a couple good sick plays. Nice stop. So maybe he's found a position where he's actually an above-average defender. But if nobody else can field the ball over at third base, he's got enough of a bat that he can at least help us in that regard over at that position.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even another guy who we've talked about before, who we don't expect to come up until about 2018, but man, if we can't figure out this situation by late season, he could be a guy that we do a September call-up for. My man Devers, he actually had a grand slam the other day. He's got 6 home runs this season, 4 this month. He is on fire. He actually had a game with the Portland Sea Dogs where he went 5 for 5 with 4 ribbies, 4 runs, and 2 home runs. So he is an offensive beast from all indications. I think they're looking for his fielding to be a little bit more consistent. But, this guy is a guy who sounds like he could really help to bolster the Red Sox offense if we really need it down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about rushing that kid. Anytime you're in a situation where, you have a young kid doing well in the minors, Double-A, and he has been inconsistent in the minors, to jump him up because of need, I don't like that. You have a plan with this kid. You have a plan with when he's going to make it to the big leagues, and I wish you wouldn't vary from that just because you're having some issues right now at the position. What is like the long-term prognosis on Panda? What's he on, the 30-day, the 15-day? What's his deal?
Yeah, I haven't heard much indication of when they're expecting Panda to be back. I think again they're kind of trying to take things cautiously with him because we saw what happened last year when we tried to be a little bit aggressive with him coming back, and then you saw what happened. He was done for the season. So yeah, I don't really know. We'll have to pay attention to that and kind of see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, if everybody else is hitting, you can kind of afford to, keep a Marrero over there, and it seems like the bats are getting going. So that's probably the stopgap in the meantime, some type of, revolving door of Marrero, the Brock Star, if he can get his vertigo in check, and Josh Rutledge.
Yep. Another guy who has now sat out 2 straight, and I'm going to kind of touch on both sides of this. Chris Young has been on fire. He had 2 home runs yesterday and has been continuing to really thrive. And also on Friday, he had that 2-run single in the 9th to tie it as a pinch hitter. He's really started to look great from an offensive perspective as well. He got the start today in place of JBJ, who hasn't looked great since coming back from that knee injury that he sustained. So I think they're going to try to give him a little bit more rest and ride the hot bat. But, I mean, what are your thoughts on Chris Young?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, that was a huge pinch hit on Friday night. I actually thought that was going to catapult them to, winning that game. It was kind of a heartbreaker that they didn't. But then he kept it going. He went, he had no home runs all season. Then he explodes for 2. So, and then you see Sandy Leon do that today, go for 2 bombs. And this is what we talked about. Like, don't fret on the bats in April and all this stuff. As the weather warms up, so don't the hitters. And that seems to be what's happening.
Definitely.
So, but I love Chris Young. You know how much, I think it's such a luxury to have this guy as a 4th outfielder, but the guy absolutely rakes first lefties, and Benintendi can handle center field, obviously. So I think that he's got to start first lefties over Bradley from now on, and he might even get some spot starts versus righties, especially if he's going as hot as he is right now. You got to ride him.
Yep. Totally agree. And I know we talked a little bit about some of the DL news from an offensive perspective. We did have some terrible news come out earlier this week, and if you're a Red Sox fan, you probably have already heard this, but Wright has gone out. Stephen Wright has gone to the DL. He is done for the season. He had knee surgery to repair some issue with his cartilage in his knee. So as you probably all saw, that Kyle Kendrick got the fill-in start on Thursday, and he did not look good. He went 4 innings, 8 hits, and 6 runs. I think that we might be also open to the opportunity to get somebody else in that position if possible. I don't know. Mike, are you hearing any rumors of some free agents or some possible trades that we can make to try to fill that spot?
Oof, I don't know if anybody's getting rid of starting pitching at this stage of the game. Maybe once the trade deadline gets closer and, they decide they're a pretender rather than a contender, maybe there'll be some guys available then. It's unfortunate because Kendrick is a wily veteran and, had a great spring. So you really thought he was going to be able to contribute to this ball club this year, but that really hasn't been the case, as he hasn't really lit the world on fire down in Pawtucket, and really just was brought up because of this need. Why wasn't Brian Johnson maybe given that opportunity? Because he looked okay in his start earlier this season. Is he healthy and pitching well?
That's a great question. I think not only Brian Johnson, but also Henry Owens. I mean, these are guys who we kind of have our eyes on as being potential starters. I think what they were thinking is that Kyle Kendrick is the guy with a little bit more experience. It's a guy who they think can probably handle that spot, and I think that they do want to give the extra added reps in AAA for Johnson and Owens before they get them up and ready to go. So, yeah, I think it's just a matter of getting them reps, and maybe we're looking at some September call-ups.
I guess. They'll definitely be up in September, you'd think, but I guess it's kind of going back to the Divas situation. I should be consistent that, hey, there's a timetable. These guys aren't ready, and they should come up. But, it's a little different with pitches. If you need a guy to come up and make a spot start, it should be the guy that, maybe is pitching the best down there. And I don't think that was Kyle Kendrick.
Yeah. And even looking a little bit deeper into the minors, we do have Hector Velasquez, who is really starting to come into form. He had 6 perfect innings versus the Gwinnett Braves, 4 Ks. He's rocking a 1.72 ERA last I checked in 15 innings pitched. He looks great. He's a guy who's like 28, who we signed from the Mexican League, so keep your eyes on him. But again, he's pretty early on, so I think he's going to see some more reps before they move him up. Mike, we've got a couple minutes left. Let's look forward to next week. We have tomorrow off, and then we're headed to Milwaukee, where we're going to get a little taste of the Brewers. What are your thoughts on that one?
And the mayor of Ding Dong City. We'll get to see him up close.
There you go.
Milwaukee is, they're having a tough year. They're kind of in a transition period. I'm a little surprised Ryan Braun hasn't been traded yet. But, I think that if we don't take 2 out of 3 in that series, that's a disappointing series, even though it's on the road.
And then we're heading back to Fenway for a nice short 3-game series versus the Rays. The Rays aren't looking great this year. You think it's possible that we can turn our fortunes around at Fenway this year?
I mean, I sure hope so, because that should be 2 out of 3, if not a sweep in that one, the way the Rays are going right now. And, we got to be looking at a 4-2 week this week, at least.
Yeah, and Mike, just to note, that last homestand that we just wrapped up, we went 4-5. So that was a rough one. That's definitely not what you're looking for on the homestands. I know that John Farrell was not too pumped talking about that today, so let's try to look to turn that around. Just a note, though, for Tuesday, Mr. Hanram getting his season debut at first base. Give me your thoughts on that one, Mike.
Say that again. Sorry, he's going to first base, and what else did you say?
Hanram is getting his season debut start at first base on Tuesday versus the Brewers.
They want to keep his bat in the lineup in the National League Park, so I can kind of understand it. But it doesn't seem like Hanram's chomping at the bit to play first base, so I don't think you'll see him playing over there much past the games that are in NL Parks where he's got to,
Yeah, and I hadn't heard that shoulder was like completely healthy yet. As far as I knew, they were still kind of working on it between innings and things. So, I'm crossing my fingers that nothing comes out of throwing him out there just because they want to keep his bat in the lineup, because we want him to stay healthy, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, what do you need a shoulder for to play first base? I mean, you don't even throw the ball hardly ever.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think we got a couple minor notes to cover. Mike, do you have any minor notes that you want to cover?
Oh, man, none that I can think of at this part. But, I mean, all being said, that a tough road trip. But, we played homestand. We played some tough teams. The Cubbies in here, the reigning champs, the Yanks who are playing well. So, I'm trying not to glare on that, and it looks like now that the bats are going, brighter days are ahead, my friend.
I certainly hope so. So, Mike, I think this is where we're going to let you go and get back to it, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for coming on, Mike.
Thank you, AfterBuzzers. Go Sox.
Couple minor notes that we just want to wrap up. We saw Ortiz and Brady hanging out at the Kentucky Derby this week. Mad props to my boy Big Papi. He's enjoying life as a retired future Hall of Famer. So we love to see that. He's getting the drinks on, and maybe he won a couple bets. I don't know. Your boy Chris Sale leading the MLB in strikeouts, 73 strikeouts. He is cruising. I hope he keeps it up. And I think that's it. So thanks everybody for tuning in to this week's Red Sox Wrap 360, and we'll see you again next week. Peace out.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.